Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrand. Joining me over there from his humble home, a gentleman you know him well. He is my friend and colleague and co-host many years, Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
I couldn't be worse, Ty.
What? Wait. Speak once more. Let me hear. What is this? What's going on?
This is my speaking voice at the moment. I know I generally have such a soothing bravado to my voice, but
you sound like hell.
I blame Jim Harbaugh because my lovely wife Jody went to the Michigan game just because Michigan was exciting and good, and then she was subjected to a monsoon and came back with a cold, and now here we are.
Wow, so this might have real fantasy things implications for you now. The monsoon game,
oh, it's so real,
may be infecting your fantasy, your literal fantasy things team.
Ty, I want you to know this though. Even though I'm under the weather, I will go down with this ship, and I won't put my hands up and surrender, Ty. No, there will be no white flag above my door. I'm in love with the Solid Verbal, and always will be.
Are those lyrics, or are you just being dramatic?
Do you not know Dido when you hear Dido? Is that what I'm to understand?
I'm not in tight with Dido. Is that what that is?
There will be no white flag above my door.
Oh.
Come on, Ty.
That's two in a row now that you've thrown by me.
This, I figured it'd be wheelhouse for you, Ty, and I could not be more disappointed.
2 in a row. That's never happened before. Well, hey, welcome on in to the Solid Verbal podcast. Thank you to everyone out there who listens on the regular, who reviews the show. We've been getting a ton of those, who follows us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the like. Dan and I are in a unique situation. Normally, we'll record around dinner time on a Wednesday evening to preview the coming week of games, but due to scheduling conflict on this end and a bunch of other stuff going around, you've got us here doing a live-to-tape show that I promise you will not be edited at all. If there are any goofs, we're just going to try and gloss over them as best we can.
Yep.
And furthermore, you've got the cold, and I'm not kidding, I am on the fringes of my recurring voice situation that I've had since July, since we did the History of show.
Yeah, Ty, this is a blue-collar lunch pail show. We just go out there, we take care of business, no matter what's going on inside our bodies. It's what we're putting out that matters.
So Week 7, we are here to talk about Week 7 in the college football universe. We should start, though, in a manner that we haven't started in quite some time, because we have breaking news!
Do you want to be the Oregon State head coach?
Nope.
Because it's open.
So what happened here? It was announced earlier this week that Gary Andersen and Oregon State were parting ways, which is typically something you hear in relation to a firing or a coach having another opportunity elsewhere. In this case, sorta nope. We're just going to go different ways. We're breaking up amicably. Gary Andersen is not cashing in, let's say, the remainder of his contract or the buyout. This is just two people fading, two ships going in opposite directions in the night.
Wasn't there a Seinfeld episode when he was dating Janine Garofalo where it was the only mutual breakup in the history of the world?
That would be accurate, yes.
Yeah, I don't think this is quite that, because I imagine Oregon State, if they had their way, would not like their head football coach resigning or deciding that it was an untenable situation after week 6. So I don't think it's fully mutual, but I think the idea that he is not accepting 12 point whatever million dollars as part of his buyout, that I'm sure is mutual on some level, that Oregon State is going into a coaching search not having owed the previous coach money. So there's that good bit, but it is quite a strange situation because he didn't quit because, as of the time we're recording this, maybe something completely strange will come out. There's no controversy. There's no situation in which he is under duress or under pressure to resign. It just seems, by all accounts, and I know John Canzano of the Oregonian, the local paper in Portland, wrote about this and about his communication with Gary Andersen, that he just felt that he hit a wall and he could not win with the culture of Oregon State, with the staff that he hired, and just with the positioning that he himself put Oregon State into. And it was just time, Ty, which is unusual. But it was unusual when he left Wisconsin for Oregon State. And, some people are just wired a little bit differently, and perhaps he's just the exception to the rule.
I give him credit if he's able to recognize it and pull the trigger on it, because that takes balls to do that. Not only to leave a really good situation at Wisconsin, but now to leave after week 6, your Oregon State team kind of hanging. Oregon State was not having a good season to begin with, but that aside, this obviously is a more complex layer to stack on top of what's going on out there in Corvallis. So we'll have to wait and see if more comes out in this regard. But Oregon State, your early front runner looking for a head football coach to start the 2018 college football season.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say, by the way, it's an impossible job because of the proximity to California, because you're still in a Power 5 conference, and because it is an area of the country where 2- and 3-star talent can turn into 3- and 4-star talent. So it's tough because of what Washington and Oregon and Stanford are looking like moving forward. But I don't think it's the most unattractive job because you're still making millions of dollars and there's still talent. So we shall see.
What if Mike Riley leaves or is let go at Nebraska and goes back to Oregon State? Sort of like he was traveling abroad for a couple. He was in Nepal, experimenting in East Asia. Comes back to Corvallis, and then Scott Frost from UCF goes back to be the prodigal son at Nebraska.
I wouldn't do that if I were Oregon State. Sometimes you need a reboot. Sometimes you just, if you're getting a divorce and you're going out and you're hitting the town and you're realizing that, maybe your wife wasn't so bad after all, she shouldn't take you back. No, absolutely not.
Well,
Everybody needs to reboot.
The reason I bring up Scott Frost is that's a natural segue.
Hey-o.
Into one of our other breaking news topics. We've got 2 uniform-related news stories here to discuss with all y'all before we dive into our picks of the week. Mm-hmm. The first is what are these called? UCF space uniforms? Do we have a name, like an official name from the uniform provider as to what they are called? But they're space-themed football uniforms that are honoring NASA that UCF's going to wear this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's some sort of, it says space game uniform, so some
space
sort of
game.
Lunar theme. Yes. Okay. So if you look at the UCF typeface on the helmet, those 3 letters, the print, the design within the UCF are they craters, Ty? You would know better than I. Craters on the moon.
I'm a big space geek.
Right, so those are the texture of craters in the moon, and then the strip and through the middle of the helmet, the crown of the helmet, it's a number of stars.
A variety of cosmic entities, let's say.
Yeah, so constellation type situations.
You got some galaxies in there, maybe a little Big Dipper action, some planets. Shout out to our friend John, who listens in Vermont, big space geek, fellow space geek. Yeah. Just a whole lot of stuff going on here, and I dig. This is a uniform done right.
Yeah, and UCF, with its location in Orlando, obviously not far from NASA and a number of space-type companies, so honoring the relationship that the university has had. And you're a space guy, Ty.
Yeah.
Everybody's got at least one topic where if they come across a new story, they drop everything to read. I like reading about drug cartels.
Yeah.
I like reading about old prisons.
We've talked about this ad nauseum. If you had one topic to read about for the remainder of your life, if you were on a stranded, deserted island, you would go with Mexican drug cartels, right?
Oh, my God. I don't love them, but I find the process of the organization and then the capture thereof, which is the most important part, to be pretty fascinating. And to bring this back, Ty, to space and football, we should mention this about UCF. These are all total facts. The Knights are the number 1 explosive offense in the country. They're number 5 at finishing drives. They're number 5 at explosive runs and passes. Number 2 at passing efficiency and success rate. Number 1 at explosive plays on standard downs. Number 5 on standard down defense. This is all to say, UCF is really friggin' good so far.
Would you say that they're otherworldly?
Outer space. They're out of this world.
They're stellar?
They're a rocket ship to the moon.
They're very, very good this season. And
Yes.
I dig by the way, my topic would be outer space if I'm on that deserted island. UCF has been an incredible turnaround story the last 2 years, obviously giving UCF fans a lot to talk about, a lot to be excited about. We've had some folks tweeting us, why don't you talk more about UCF? When you wear space outfits, it's kind of hard not to. We felt
Shout out to
obligated
Mackenzie
bring
Milton.
that. Yeah, absolutely. So on the heels of that, and while we're in the great state of Florida, I guess we got to talk about the swamp greens that Florida is trotting out this week. First off, I've got a color blindness issue. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Oh, I know sort of about this, yes.
Are these actually green outfits?
No.
Because to me, they don't look green on the computer screen.
They're the color of a bog. So it's an indiscriminate color between
bog.
A bog. So sort of like a charcoalish. It's not a charcoalish green. It's just it's like what vomit would look like in the onset of colored film. Like, it's a color you cannot find an HTML hex for, Ty.
Thank you for that. If you go out to Google and just look up swamp green Florida uniforms, you'll see what we're talking about. What I thought of when I saw these at first is, do you remember a couple years back, an infamous moment on this show and in college football, the Cam Newton Heisman speech when he accepted the award?
Of course, for the troops.
And at the time, he thanked God, the troops, a whole bunch of disparate entities. Your comment in response to that speech was that it seemed as if Cam Newton had taken advice from too many people and decided to honor all of their advice.
Yes.
This uniform, to me, feels as if it is honoring just about every fashion trend in sports uniforms going on present day. There's so much going on here.
Yeah, what I don't fully understand, because I really like the cleats, like that sort of gator. That makes sense. You know, gators are a skin print that people, or a skin that people make shoes out of, and that looks kind of cool and it's unique and interesting, whatever. What I don't understand is, how is there not a bar to hurdle? Yeah. How is there not somebody at Nike saying, I get what you're going for.
Right,
I do.
Right. Like just a little kid. A little bit of design supervision.
Right. Like when a little kid finally decides to dress him or herself, the parent's still probably not sending the kid to school wearing moon boots and a baseball helmet.
Correct.
Like there's still that bar to hurdle. And it seems strange when Nike, which is, I would say, generally pretty good at figuring out design of especially alternate uniforms. They're not where Adidas was before, let's say. The fact that it looks like something that Ed Hardy himself would say, I'm not sure what's going on. This is too much for me. Let's go back and figure out a compromise of where we should go with this. Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the Florida A&M game here momentarily. Do you have any other news?
Florida, Texas A&M. We're not talking about FAMU today.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. Let's just jump into the game, shall we? Week 7?
Dan, time, help. I need picks of the week.
All right. Week 7. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at, study, admire the action before us. As I look at our headliners this week, the thing about Week 7 that really jumps out to me is that I have no confidence in any of these favorites covering the point spread. Usually, that's a pretty good recipe for a nice week of college football games. So I would be remiss to miss the games earlier in the day. It feels to me like that's the greatest potential for good games, potentially an upset. I say your window of opportunity, if you're in the position to find one, would be later on. Make it another date night because there are some really good night games in Week 8. I would say stick around early, go out for a late dinner, catch the movie, drinks, your libations at night.
Wait, you want to miss the end of the night games?
Well, I don't want to miss any games, but I'm saying if you're forced to prioritize, right. I am fine missing Florida and Texas A&M. I am fine missing USC and Utah. I am fine missing the 11 o'clock Oregon and Stanford game. Although I know you'll be watching that game.
No, Ty, honestly, if I make it to halftime, it will be a miracle. We'll see.
For me, the window of opportunity would be later. Does that sound fair?
It's reasonable. I would take it earlier just because I think the best game of that early window, it looks like the Big 12 has the better games of the Nooners, and West Virginia, Texas Tech will last 4 hours. They will combine to throw 90 passes. So you can catch a good chunk of the tail end of that. TCU, Kansas State may be over pretty quickly if Kansas State controls the clock, even if they don't win. So you figure out which kind of style you're more into on the early games, and you can figure it out for yourself. I would take the early break.
All right, well, there's your window of opportunity rebuttal, but the only one that counts, the only opinion in the room that counts. I say make it late. Make sure you're home next Saturday night when you've got Notre Dame USC, when you've got Penn State Michigan, bunch of other stuff going on. All right, okay. Saturday, high noon on the East Coast on ESPNU. We've got West Virginia. They're about a 3.5 point favorite at home against Texas Tech. You just said wisely that this is going to be a long 4-hour game. The over-under for this contest is around the 78-point mark. There will be a lot of offense. These teams actually, if you look at them statistically, have an awful lot in common, don't they?
Absolutely do. 100% do. Defenses are probably a little bit underrated. Very good at producing big chunk plays. Quarterbacks who have produced a good amount early on. And a surprising amount of balance, at least for Texas Tech. They look particularly sharp when they're able to move the ball on the ground. And same goes for Justin Crawford in West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about Justin Crawford and Billy Greer and former 13-year-old recruit David Sills. The fifth, is he going by that now? The wide receiver for West Virginia having an incredible year. We have devoted precisely 0% of our time to Texas Tech. Let's talk about...
early on, we've said, hey, they're playing some defense. That's pretty cool.
Let's talk about their quarterback, Nick Shimonek. He's having a year, Dan. 14 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Let's talk about Tech getting a little bit more out of the running game, too. This has been a little bit more of a balanced attack.
Justin Stockton, sure.
Than we've seen in previous years. My inclination is to go with Texas Tech. And this is driven by 2 reasons. The first is that I usually take the points in a shootout. And I think this has plenty of shootout potential. Sure. Even if it's only 3.5, I'm still going to take the points wherever I can get them.
And that came down, right? It was at about 5.5, 6.
It did come down, yeah. I generally will take the points in a shootout because I don't trust either defense, and if you're giving me points to start, I'm going to take that. The second reason is I'm going to double down a little bit on my anti-West Virginia stance from earlier in the year. Now, granted, I don't think West Virginia, as it is presently composed, is going to go 5-7 like I predicted. In hindsight, that was probably a dumb thing to say.
It happens.
But I'm still not totally sold in this West Virginia team, and I do like what I'm seeing from Texas Tech. In a game where it feels like whoever has the ball last wins, in a game that feels so even like this, I'm going to take points. I'm sort of quasi going to double down on my preseason prediction here and say West Virginia loses at home, Texas Tech wins the game outright with like a 42-39 kind of score.
Ty, we agree.
Oh!
I don't really have a strong voice to really go for it like I normally can. So yes, West Virginia's offense is still terrific. Defensively, Tony Gibson year in, year out does a very good job with them. I would, if I were Texas Tech, if you can get West Virginia to third down, I don't love West Virginia's play calling and execution on passing downs. And Texas Tech has I mean, as you alluded to, a top 15 offense thus far. They can produce big plays. To me, especially after seeing what Khalil Herbert did a couple weeks ago, Kansas running back, to this West Virginia defense, if Texas Tech can run decently, they're going to win. I have them close on the road just because all we really know about West Virginia is they're basically as good as teams we think are good,
right?
Which doesn't tell me a lot after the Virginia Tech and TCU games. And TCU obviously was an up-in-the-air situation. I have the Red Raiders 34-31 on the road. A good back and forth.
By the way, that'd be a huge road win.
Unbelievable.
For Cliff Kingsbury, a really big road win. Remember, the storyline at the start of the year was, is this thing going in any positive or negative direction down in Lubbock, or are they just treading water?
No, they're producing turnovers. David Gibbs has done a good job. It's taken a couple years with the defense, but Texas Tech is a situation that is the exact opposite with the offense that they run of LSU. LSU just can't fall backwards into a quarterback. Texas Tech was like, oh, we got another guy who's going to throw for, I don't know, 4,500. Is that cool? All right, sweet.
All right. Well, West Virginia fans should be thrilled that we both took
sorry.
Texas Tech, but okay.
But also I'm wrong all the time. So
well, that's what I'm saying. Okay. Saturday, high noon, Fox Sports 1, TCU, a 4.5-point road favorite against K-State. So we got Ken Hill here on the road 1 week after that big win over West Virginia, team we just talked about. Typically, Dan, this is the kind of game where you and I would look at it, we point to it, we would highlight it, and we would name easily K-State our home dog of the week. Are you doing that here? Do you feel those vapors here for K-State?
I feel the vapors a little bit for Dalton Schoen, Ty, because everybody has to find themselves a walk-on that they love, who suddenly is super productive. And that's probably Dalton Schoen. I don't love K-State because the quarterback situation to me is up in the air. Bill Snyder has said that if he's healthy, Jesse Ertz, who left the Texas game, the double overtime loss last week, if he's able to play, he will. If not, it'll be, I believe it's Alex Delton who played against Texas. I don't love that going against a top 10 type team like TCU. Kansas State has a good experienced defense. TCU just, I think they can win in too many ways. They're good at everything. Still too many big plays can be had on defense against this TCU team, but I don't think Kansas State is the team to take advantage of that. If you can keep Kansas State to 3 in the red zone, and Kansas State's not great in the red zone, I think TCU will be fine. Kansas State will just slow the game down enough to keep it pretty low scoring. I have 27-17 TCU. Also kind of a letdown spot after the double overtime loss.
I have the same margin of victory for TCU, but I have it at 34-24. That might actually be a little high. So you mentioned something about K-State that I want to come back to. You talked about their good experienced defense. I wouldn't normally disagree with you because that's usually the case for Bill Snyder and Kansas State. But what happened last weekend against a respectable offense in Texas? It was the defense.
They gave up points.
It was the defense that let K-State down in that game. The implication is always that the defense is solid, but what if it isn't? What if it isn't? Right. Texas was really the first good team that K-State played all year. Is it just a coincidence that the defense bottomed out, or is it a sign that against other better offenses we're going to see similar behavior? I am celebrating, as I said last week, a little something I like to call Kentoberfest.
Oh, nice.
I think TCU is just outright the better team here. More variety, more variety on offense, I should say. More proven on defense. I just think more ways to win. 34-24 is going to be my prediction here. I think TCU wins on the road and covers. That being said, I can very easily envision a scenario in which it goes totally the other way and K-State wins. But right now, my gut tells me TCU by 10.
Well, didn't Kansas State, I mean, they held them under 30. Kansas State held Texas under 30 in regulation, right?
Under 30 in regulation. That is correct.
Okay.
But
on the road.
But if you look at that game, I think the takeaway is that defense is what let them down.
That's fair. I mean, we're not going to rehash the full Texas-Kansas State game. Texas had a good day offensively. They did a good enough job against the pass, and Kansas State moved the ball through the air. But yeah, Texas was the better team. Kansas State, they're coming back home. We'll see if that helps.
The other thing worth noting, and then I promise we'll move on to our next game here.
Yeah.
Finding a dress shirt that fits can be really difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Something's always off. That's why you need to look up our pals over at propercloth.com. Because if you head on out there, you can easily create a custom shirt by answering just 10 simple questions. It'll take you a matter of seconds, Dan. Not to mention, you could choose from over 20 collar styles, 10 cuff styles, 500 fabric styles, from classic to business, to completely customize whatever you want on your shirt. Get the style you want from Proper Cloth. The team over there, they work day and night to find the best fabric producers from around the globe. They only buy fabrics that meet their high-quality standards. Each one of their shirts goes through extensive quality control testing. You're only getting the absolute best quality and craftsmanship, and they guarantee a perfect fit. So if you don't know, if you're a little leery about this, like, how are they going to know if it fits me with just 10 questions on the web? Fear not. If you do it, if the shirt doesn't fit, they will remake it for free. It's a pretty good
I thought
deal.
you were going somewhere else with if the shirt doesn't fit.
No. Right. If the shirt doesn't fit, they'll make sure that the next one does. This is absolutely the future of shirts. They make it completely custom for you. It all starts at just $80 a shirt. Mm-hmm. Stop wearing shirts that don't fit. Go to propercloth.com/solid today. Enter the gift code SOLID and save $20 on your first shirt. Gift code SOLID. Save $20 on your first shirt, Dan. Do it today.
Yes. Maybe like if the shirt doesn't fit, don't worry. Send it back and it'll still be lit. How about that? No?
You pulled that together a little bit better than I expected.
That wasn't bad, right?
Not bad.
Okay. For a sick guy, I'm all right.
Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. On CBS, we've got a good one here. I'm excited about this game. We got
this will be fun.
Auburn, a 7-point road favorite against LSU. LSU is an interesting team now. We're always an interesting team at the start of the 2017 season for a variety of different reasons, but after what we saw last week, big 17-16 road win in the Swamp over Florida, we're talking reboots, right? Reboot on offense for LSU. We saw some gadgets that we liked. If LSU has now gone through that reboot, I've been trying to figure out all week what we call the last couple games for Auburn, because it's been like a bigger, more dramatic, more exciting reboot. Maybe they rebooted very early on and now they're getting back up to speed. Like what do we call this situation where the running game's been so stable, the defense has been good, and Jared Stidham has started to come into his own?
Well, I mean, they've been rolling since Mercer, and they kind of struggle a little bit with Mercer. So the Mercer boost? I don't know.
Okay. The Mercer boost. We can workshop that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the lab. So, all right, we saw promise a week ago from LSU in the win. It still wasn't what I would classify as an offensive explosion. They only scored, 17 points against pretty good defense. What worries me here is what we saw a couple weeks back when LSU lost by 30 to Mississippi State. Because in that game, everybody knew that the Bulldogs were going to try and run it against LSU. Maybe the game was an aberration. Who knows? But
same for Troy.
Sure, Mississippi State LSU knew what was coming from Mississippi State, and they still couldn't stop it. And so I look at a game like this, and I say, well, okay, Jared Stidham's been good. He's looked comfortable. But the bread and butter of a Gus Malzahn and Auburn offense is that rushing attack, which has really been on a much different level than any of these teams that LSU has played so far. So with that in mind, I think Auburn wins the game by 11.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about Auburn, just in a vacuum, much more so than I do about LSU. The LSU defense is a new challenge as compared to what Auburn has faced since Clemson. Just in terms of the speed, just in terms of how well coached they are, they're ahead of Mississippi State, they're ahead of Ole Miss, they're ahead of Mercer. It's not saying much. They're ahead of Mizzou. But Auburn is really, you neglected to mention a big thing. Auburn's led by maybe the best, they're a top 3-4 defense in the country at this point.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right there. Alabama, Penn State, Wisconsin, Clemson. They're a top 5 defense probably. Nobody is better than Auburn's defense in the red or whatever green zone within the 40. They just lock teams down. There's a little bit of bend, but there is just basically no break. And against LSU's offense, if LSU is going to score enough to win this game, they're going to need something in the way of broken plays, trick plays, special teams, something like that. Because I could not see more than 2 drives for touchdowns from this LSU offense. I just can't. Defensively, LSU, you're right. They need to stop the run. Kerryon Johnson is I think he's leading the country in touchdowns, and he didn't even play a couple games. They need to get to third down. They need to get Auburn to third down if they sort of have any shot and make Jarrett Stidham, who has been incredibly efficient, but just to keep drives going. Auburn really hasn't played 4 quarters since that Clemson game, so I would test them that way. keep them on the field. But I think there's too much. But the fact that it is, and it's not a night game, but the fact that it's in Baton Rouge, I'm actually going to say 24-20. LSU covers, Auburn wins.
I could see that too. I went back and forth. Actually, if I'm being honest, the main reason I'm going to go Auburn here is because my initial gut feel was to go LSU.
Yeah, that's all right.
And we know how that's worked out. I'm going to say Auburn wins 28-17. I am not especially confident in that, but I want to see a little bit more from LSU, a little bit more consistency across the board before I'm willing to take them to cover against a really good Auburn defense like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go to another Saturday at 3:30 game. It's on ESPN, Dan. It is Oklahoma. It is Texas. It is an 8-point line in favor of the Sooners. It is the famed Red River rivalry. And we do have a rule.
Ooh, that's a little too aggressive, Ty.
Yeah.
It was the Red River shootout, but Red River rivalry, it's just, it implies, heads butting. And maybe the Red River terse handshake.
I mean, it's a lot of alliteration when you go Red River rivalry. I still prefer the shootout nomenclature.
Yeah.
But officially, the game title is the Red River rivalry. So let's go with that. My question for you, though, and I hope you'll remember the answer. We do have a rule for big games like this, rivalry games around here. Do we not?
We should keep the records inside, right?
No, Dan. Actually, you want to throw those records out the window. Just throw them out.
Oh, okay. I always forget.
Let me start here.
Okay.
Yes or no, Texas can win this game?
Yes. Did you want a full explanation?
I'm trying to gauge your level of confidence.
Yeah, there's a, I don't know, 30% chance that Texas can win this game to me.
Okay. Why only 30?
Why only 30? I mean, Oklahoma's more than a touchdown favorite.
Okay.
Texas can't run the ball. It seems like you should be able to run the ball against a top 12 type team, right?
Okay. These are all valid points. I'm just listening. This is a listening session, Dan.
We have the best quarterback in the country on one of the teams, and it's not Texas. That's a reason why I'm only putting it at 30-ish%.
Okay.
We have a proven offense on one side and not the other. That's a reason.
These are all good points here, but
yeah,
I'm going to harken back to week 2.
Okay.
Texas took USC to overtime. And since then, they might not have the best quarterback in the country. They certainly don't. But it does seem as if they've found something with Sam Ehlinger. The defense has been playing pretty well over the last few weeks. I think absolutely this team can win. I think the odds are a lot better than 30%. What I struggle with, though, I mean, you already know where I'm going with this because I always pick Texas in this game. But what I struggle with as someone trying to at least be objective, how much of a reaction is a crazy overreaction to what we saw last week when Oklahoma lost to Iowa State?
I don't think there's a crazy overreaction here. I think it's about right. I mean, if the spread happened before last week, what do we know about? I mean, Texas right now, they are a little bit worse than USC and a little bit better than Kansas State. I don't know how you feel, and they're like a kind of better than Iowa State, which you can't really say about Oklahoma. But I think if you play that Oklahoma-Iowa State game 10 times, perhaps the numbers are different.
That's fair. I'm just concerned to the extent that I haven't been too impressed with Oklahoma's defense all year.
That's fine. They did a good job against Ohio State, didn't they?
They did. It worries me in this game.
Oklahoma is just a team that plays to the level of their competition and takes decent teams seriously and maybe perhaps doesn't recognize when other teams are decent and not what they used to be.
That would be a fair scouting report on the state of Oklahoma football over the last couple of years, I think. Yeah. I am going Texas here because I can't resist it, because Tom Herman's a big game coach, because he's got a little bit of history with Oklahoma, certainly last year when he knocked him off. And I think the Horns win this game outright. by a 35-31 margin. I think Texas moves to 3-0 in Big 12 conference play for the first time in eons.
So if I gave you an over-under of 18.5 Sam Ehlinger carries, what are you taking?
I would go under, but I understand the line.
Okay. So let me agree with you at the first points of why Texas is attractive. Their defense has, since the Maryland game, been pretty great, especially against the run. The offense has shown improvement. It still stalls out too much. It still probably hangs what we think is, I think, a good defense out to dry too much. And for some reason, the offense also doesn't find a way to get the ball to Colin Johnson enough, which is crazy because the Oklahoma defense gives up some big plays, as we saw last weekend. Duke of Hazzard, Alan Lazard, and stuff. Beyond that, Oklahoma's offense has been pretty much perfect. Baker Mayfield is averaging something like 12 yards per pass attempt. I imagine he will be able to do enough carving of this Texas pass defense, which I think is also not bad. Both of these teams will be up for the game. There won't be a letdown from Kansas State in double overtime last week. There won't be a malaise for Oklahoma since the Iowa State game. They'll be up for this game. I have 34-24 Oklahoma.
All right. We disagree. Moving on, another Saturday at 3:30 game. This one on ABC. Miami at home, a 6.5-point favorite over the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. So this is an interesting game.
Yes.
I deliberated about throwing this one on our main slate here, but Miami's an interesting team. We just really started talking about them in earnest last week because of the Florida State game. Georgia Tech, we last spoke of them when they lost that heartbreaker back in week 1 to Tennessee. This is an interesting game to me for a variety of reasons. Let's start here, though. Miami got some bad news this week about Mark Walton. We've talked about Mark Walton here and there. He was their star running back. He was having a great year. Last week did something to his right ankle. This week found out he needs surgery and he's done for the year.
Yeah.
That's obviously a pretty big loss. They do have Travis Homer behind him, who in limited action so far this season has been pretty productive. They're obviously going to need him to step up in a much, much more significant way. But if the early returns are any indication, they should have enough depth at running back to sustain that running game. Maybe not quite to the heights of Mark Walton, but they should be serviceable at running back moving forward. That doesn't concern me as much as a potential letdown-ish kind of spot does, as much as, some other weird injury factors elsewhere on the team concern me. How concerned are you about the Canes dropping a game like this?
Very. First of all, if you like running, Ty, and trust me, if you could see my nose right now, I like running. I'm a disaster right now. If you like running, it's a terrific rushing matchup. There is no Mark Walton, as we all know by now, but Travis Homer, as you mentioned, also very good, at least in his limited action. Yes, it's a letdown spot. Not only will they 100% be without Mark Walton, Amon Richards now looks like he could be out Saturday. Yep. And if Miami has a specific weakness right now, their rush defense, we saw it against Duke. We saw it last week. Cam Akers go off a little bit for Florida State. You can go straight at Miami. They look to confuse you, but at that same time, perhaps they abandon some gaps and lanes and stuff like that. On top of that, Miami starts slow, as we've seen week in and week out, and this is an extremely efficient offense that's able to overcome that against the teams they play. But here's the thing against Georgia Tech specifically that I hate. I hate about Miami early on. Miami has not been good on third down. If there's one thing you gotta be against Georgia Tech, you gotta be able to get your defense off the field. You just have to. And Miami has not been great at that this year. They've been able to cover for it, but I don't know if they're able to do it against Georgia Tech. The good news for Miami, Georgia Tech also has struggles stopping the run. I right now, based on what's happening just sort of in the college football ether, with it being a letdown spot after a dramatic breakthrough win against Florida State, even though this is, I think, Georgia Tech's first time leaving Atlanta this season, because they had a cancellation and the first game was in Atlanta, just albeit in the NFL stadium. I'm going Tech outright here.
Whoa.
It just feels like there's a bad cocktail brewing. I know cocktails aren't brewed, but that's the verbiage I'm going with. 27-24 Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but to your point, the key to this game might be the backup running back Travis Homer. It might be.
What if he's even better than the starter, though, Ty?
Well, then that's something we'll have to draft next year. It's entirely possible. And also Malik Rozier. He can run as well.
Sure.
Did not look good throwing the football a week ago against Florida State, at least not until later in that game. My hunch is he'd have more success against a Georgia Tech defense that isn't nearly as good. But you're right. Coming back home, they start slow. The third down thing is a bit concerning. And the problem with starting slow against Georgia Tech, they don't always start off fast either. Right. But if they do, and if they get a lead on you, that's when they get more dangerous. Even if it's like a 3-point lead, because of their style of play, they just suck the life out of you. And they make you need to be efficient in order to beat them. So, look, I don't want to talk Georgia Tech up like they're this ACC juggernaut or anything like that.
Well, we really have no idea, right?
We really don't. And this, to me, feels like a bad situation for Miami. I'm not going to go quite to the level you will and say Miami outright, though I can see that happening. I'm going to say the Canes win this one, a wild one, like 38-33, something like that. Georgia Tech covers but doesn't win outright. But they're in the game, the entire game, all 4 quarters.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, then we go to the nightcap. This one also in this great state of Florida.
Yes.
It's on ESPN2. It's at 7 p.m. We already talked about the Florida Gator swamp green gator print uniforms, right?
True.
Either the best uniform of all time or the worst uniform of all time, depending on your point of view. Florida's a 3-point home favorite over Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
What do we know about Florida so far this season? We know they're really young. We know that Malik Davis and Felipe Franks are both freshmen. Mm-hmm. We know that their defense, as is usually the case, is pretty solid. I think we've seen them in a couple games where we've got an accurate sample of what Florida football is in 2017. You could, to some degree, say the same things about Texas A&M, right? We saw them against a UCLA team. We saw them against Alabama. They came back against Alabama late in that game. These are two teams I feel like we know an awful lot about both of them. And I still have no idea who to pick here. I really don't. It feels to me tough. Like a really even game, right?
Somewhat, yeah. The fact that it's in Gainesville, I think, evens it out a considerable amount. If this game was in College Station, I think we would probably agree that Texas A&M was probably in a better position.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So, yes, you're right. Florida has a pretty good defense. They tighten up in the red zone really well. They're completely decimated at receiver right now. And that's not to mention Luke Del Rio at quarterback, who looks like he's the chosen starter or whatever. But no Tyree Cleveland. It looks like Kadarius Toney is questionable. I'm not confident after seeing Texas A&M's defense get better and better since that UCLA game. I'm not all that comfortable with saying that Florida's going to be able to move the ball successfully all that much. Offense is still largely a mess. I like Felipe Franks, but that's mostly just deep. I don't like his ability to march down the field. A&M's offense has improved, but they're still at times kind of a mess. But you see the wheels turning with Kellen Mond. You do.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go A&M outright.
Yeah, me too.
And I think I'm not going to try to overthink it. I just don't think Florida's going to be able to score enough. I think it's 20 to 13.
I've got 27-17. A&M beats them. 27's a lot to score on Florida, but I am more energized right now by what I see from Kellen Mond and the A&M offense than what I've seen from Florida. This has been a half season now for the Gators, and it still doesn't feel to me like they've progressed beyond a few flashes here and there from Felipe Franks. Malik Davis has been pretty good, but beyond that, it doesn't feel like it's progressing quickly enough to potentially score with a team like Texas A&M. The other quick point is I do feel like Florida might be susceptible to some big plays from Christian Kirk. Not like anyone out there isn't.
Right.
But if you look at the numbers, tendency-wise, that's been a bit of an Achilles heel for them. Big passing plays. So
sure.
I am going to go A&M outright 27-17. Would be a huge road win in the Swamp against those weirdo uniforms.
Also, Florida's putting some bad style karma out into that universe, Ty.
Yeah?
Yeah, the uniforms.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely.
They're I don't know. It's not right, Ty. It's just not right.
Saturday at 8 p.m. on ABC, USC and Utah square off. The game is in the Coliseum. USC is a 13-point favorite. I'm sure both these teams are crazy grateful that they're playing a night game on ESPN and ABC.
They have to be. They get the 8 p.m. Eastern kick. That's nice.
Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, what up? Okay.
Sure.
So, 13 points is the line here, huh?
Many points.
Does that feel abnormally high to you at all?
A little bit. I think there's concern about Utah at quarterback because we're already now. So Tyler Huntley's still hurt and was very good when healthy. So it falls back to Troy Williams, who we've seen before at Utah as just aggressively average. Mm-hmm. And now there's even discussion of Cooper Bateman getting reps in practice, and perhaps he's the answer at quarterback.
Okay.
Which, when you start dipping back to number 3, Ty, it's not always the best sign. There's a reason why we don't have maybe the third string's better than the starter.
That only works at Iowa State.
That does only work at Iowa State. Has not worked at Oregon thus far. So, to me, USC has a pretty good defense, if not a good defense. I think both of these teams have actually really good defenses. Both of these teams turn other teams over. But also USC happens to give it away a ton via the forward pass. And when Ronald Jones is healthy, they seem to run the ball well. They're getting healthier along the offensive line, which is a good sign. Although I don't think Stephen Carr is playing Ronald Jones' backup. I think he's still hurt. And if you get USC to passing downs, they dip a little bit on offense. They struggle to convert those. Utah, with and without Tyler Huntley, has had a hugely efficient offense, especially on the ground, and that's a pretty good matchup against USC's run defense, which in chunks of games gives up a little bit too much. We saw Jamal Morrow go off. We saw Bryce Love. We'll see what happens with Utah. Utah also has a pretty good linebacking core. And they're both good on the field, and also their names are Sunia Tautioli and Kavika Luafatasaga.
Wow.
Remember those names.
Wow, okay.
Sunia Tautioli, Kavika Luafatasaga.
Jesus, okay.
I'm ready to roll. So I don't think Utah wins this game. I think they cover because of their ability to flip the field with a deep, talented defense. I have 28-20 Trojans.
Yeah, I keep coming back to Kyle Whittingham saying it's still up in the air who's playing quarterback, and that's just really disconcerting to me this close to a big game. No doubt Utah will be prepared to play, but I look at the line and I say to myself, somebody knows something here. That just feels like way too much in a game where Utah is usually very competitive. So I think USC wins. I think it's probably right on the number. I'm going to say USC 31-17, a front door barely cover situation.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
Big home win for USC.
Yeah, big win a couple years ago when Utah had the hype, and of course Sam Darnold and USC went to Salt Lake last year and lost.
All right. I should also mention that Casper is a sleep brand that creates premium mattresses. They sell them online for really just a fraction of what they would cost in a store. Their business works by continuously developing their mattresses using feedback from nearly 500,000 customers. Their San Francisco R&D team recently developed a proprietary foam.
Ooh.
Listen to this.
I'm ready.
It's a foam now that relieves pressure and increases airflow. I didn't even know those two things were possible from a foam, but okay. Real customers have said their mattress is like sleeping on a brioche.
Very good, Ty.
And like being cradled by the tinkling of baby laughter in the moonlight.
Ooh, I like that.
Which sounds pleasant enough.
Sure.
Buying a Casper is very easy. You can order it online, whether you're in the United States, Canada, or now even the UK. It's delivered to your door in a compact, how did they do that, sized box with free shipping and free returns. Considering, Daniel, that we spend 1/3 of our lives on a mattress, you got to make sure you're sleeping on a good one before you fully commit to it. That's why they give you 100 nights for free to try it out. And if you don't love it, they'll pick it up, they'll return everything, they'll refund you your money, but at least do it a solid and try it out for 100 days. We both have them. We love them. Right now, you can get $50 towards any mattress purchase by going to Casper.com/verbal. Casper.com/verbal and use the code verbal, VERBAL, at checkout. $50 towards any mattress purchase. Code is verbal. Terms and conditions apply.
Ty, it is 9:18 p.m. Eastern Time as we record this. I am sick, and I cannot wait for my upcoming snuggle sesh on my Casper. Just me and the mattress.
Let's leave it at that. Okay. So we've got a bunch of other games to run through here. And
yes,
I believe because we had, again, some scheduling conflicts this week, you're sick, my voice is going, it's later at night, live to tape. Like, we got a bunch of stuff going on here that normally we don't have to deal with. So you may have even added some additional games to what I put on our initial sheet here. Let's go to Friday night, though. Let's travel back in time. 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Washington State. At time of recording, or at least at time of producing my Google Doc here, I've got them listed as about a 14-point favorite on the road at Cal. Did you know that Wazoo is now 8th in the nation in the polls?
It's crazy.
8th in the nation. And look, I don't mean any disrespect to Washington State because they've absolutely earned it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just not a team I'm accustomed to seeing in the top 10. So when you look out there and you say, wow, I didn't realize they were that high, it's not because I'm trying to disrespect you. It's just because it's good to see a fresh team name in that top 10. Yeah. So, all right, here we go. 14-point road favorite. Dan, who you got?
I'm taking Wazoo. I think Cal is bad.
Yeah.
I think Cal started the year against teams now because of the wonder of Sudoku. We know North Carolina is not that good. We know Ole Miss is not that good, and good for Cal for beating teams that aren't that good, but I think they themselves are disappointing, and Wazoo is perfectly built to roll them. So I think Wazoo wins by 20.
Wazoo wins by 20, and let's get nuts.
Lock of the week.
In normal circumstances, and by normal I mean past, and by past I mean like 5 years ago, this might have been the kind of game that goes 45-42. But Washington State has a good opportunistic defense, and Cal just happens to have a potentially potent offense, but they're young. And Washington State focuses on the precise thing that could put Cal in a world of hurt, and that's turnovers.
Right. Wasn't this the matchup like 3 or 4 years ago? Ended up like 70-68?
Yep.
Or 60-58 or something like that?
That's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I like Washington State going away here. Give me them.
Earlier that night, by the way, I have a periphery for you, Ty. Clemson, this is Friday night. Clemson, I think it's minus 22.5 at Syracuse.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Clemson wins here. But lest we forget, Syracuse in the Carrier Dome over an ACC divisional champ last year. Yes?
Correct.
Virginia Tech?
Correct.
About a year to the day. It was week 7 last year where that happened. The Carrier Dome, there's always weirdness, Ty Ellis. You struggled there. If you want to talk about the ghost of Jerome Smith and the ghost of, I believe it was Prince Tyson Gully.
Okay.
Against Louisville in 2012. I'm just saying, Carrier Dome periphery, and Kelly Bryant may be out with a tweaked ankle. You never know, Ty. You just never know.
What is Syracuse's record this year? 3-3?
That sounds right.
Something like that. They are a decidedly mediocre team on both sides of the football. Yeah, I mean, their offense has been every bit as average as their defense. They've really lacked efficiency on offense, and that's not something I expected from Dino Babers in year 2. Typically, they get a lot better a lot sooner.
That said, Ty, if anybody wants to come on this show and insist that they're not better than Central Michigan, I swear to God,
I'm going to go Clemson to win here. Win and cover on the road in Carrier Dome.
South Carolina, Tennessee.
Tennessee, so this is Saturday at noon, South Carolina at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 2.5, 3-point home favorite. They are also coming off a bye. I am still not sold on South Carolina, though I do think this is going to be a close football game because, as we've talked about in previous episodes, South Carolina has really taken on the identity of Will Muschamp, and they got a good defense. So I'm going to say Tennessee wins this game. Relatively low scoring. Let's go 23-16 at home.
I disagree. You are giving me an opportunity to pick against a team in crisis, collapsing, that is coming off a game that they scored 0 points at home in. I think South Carolina wins this game. I think they win this game by 10 to 13 points.
Wow.
Lock it up, Ty.
Lock of the week.
I'm taking a road team in Washington State that's a much heftier favorite than almost any of the teams we're talking about here this evening.
Yeah.
You are taking a road team in Neyland Stadium.
I am.
That's not the easiest place to be a road favorite, or a road dog, excuse me.
True. But you know what I've seen this year, Ty?
Tennessee football?
I've seen UMass hang with Tennessee.
Okay.
In Neyland Stadium.
Yeah.
With Chris Berman on the sideline. I'm good.
All right. Okay. Also at noon on Saturday, Michigan -7 on the road at Indiana. I am going to take Michigan to win and cover because I like a heavy dose of Ty Isaac, and I think that could be a problem for Indiana.
I'm going to take Michigan as well, Ty. I think we're undervaluing Michigan a little bit, and I checked. Saturday is going to be sunny and dry in Bloomington.
Yes.
So we are going Michigan, and now my wife is home, and she's dancing in the doorway of this room. She's the one who got me sick, Ty, so I do not appreciate it. I think Michigan wins by a couple touchdowns. Indiana can't stop the run. That's all I looked up.
Saturday at high noon, we've also got Florida State -7 on the road at Duke. I'm going to go ahead and name Duke my home dog of the week.
The Yakos home dog of the week.
Get that last drop out. So Florida State looked better on defense last week than they had in previous weeks. I'll give them that. But I am going Duke here because while Florida State might not be in crisis per se, there are just too many things on offense that I don't feel good about. I like Cam Akers. I like where he's headed.
Sure.
I'm still not sold on James Blackman. And Duke is plucky. Duke and Daniel Jones, they find ways to be competitive in some of these football games. They're at home. Florida State's a week after that Miami contest. And I just feel like generally they're pretty awful right now. So I'm going to say Duke, cover the point spread at a minimum at home. Wouldn't be surprised to see an outright W.
So you remember why I chose and why I picked UCLA over Colorado a couple weeks ago?
Because sooner or later they just
got to win one of these.
Got to win one of them, right?
One of these weeks, Florida State has to look pretty good. They just have to. I like Duke's defense. I still think they'll give up too many big plays. I don't fully love Duke's offense. I think Florida State wins this game comfortably. I think they win by 14. I'm going to say 34-20, Florida State.
Saturday at 3:30, we've got Virginia, a 4-point road favorite at UNC, Dan.
Yes.
The Who's, by the way, a cool 4-1 while no one was paying attention.
Yeah.
Actually, beat Duke a week ago.
They did.
And UNC, I had the distinct pleasure of seeing them. They're really pretty terrible this year, aren't they?
They are super wounded and not at all good at tackle football.
Give me Virginia to win and cover on the road at North Carolina.
Yeah, I think Virginia's at least a touchdown better. I have another game in this window, Ty.
Oh, please.
I think it's in the noon window.
Please.
I think it's going to be kind of interesting. Purdue's traveling to Wisconsin.
Ooh.
Wisconsin's about 16.5, 17-point favorite. Real quick, If you would want Purdue to do one thing really well in this game, what would it be? Like if not in this game, but if Purdue does one thing really well to compete in this game, what would you want that to be?
I would want them to be able to contain the Wisconsin rushing attack.
Ty, have I got great news for you?
Yes, please.
Purdue's good against the run.
Okay.
Purdue's totally good against the run, and they're tested. They've played Louisville. They've played Michigan. I think Purdue does a good enough job. I think they cover the spread in this game. I don't think they win outright, but I think we're undervaluing Purdue a little bit. I'm going to take the Boilers to cover.
They were my lock of the week a week ago. I'm on board with you.
Okay.
Gosh. I don't know if I could. You know what? What the hell? It's late. I'm tired. You're sick.
Flip it.
Let's just do Purdue plus the points here.
Yes. Next game.
The final game that I have, probably the final game of the evening on Saturday. And I really only bring this one up because, well, A, it's an interesting matchup. But B, as an Oregon fan, you're somewhat obligated to pay attention to this game.
Yeah.
At 11 p.m. Eastern time. You said at the top of the show you're not staying up to watch this game.
Well, I normally go to sleep around... I stayed up for the Oregon-Arizona State game, and I regretted every second of it. So I think I'm just going to go to sleep at halftime. I generally go to sleep around 12:30, and I'll watch the late games the following morning, either before or after we record our Sunday show. So I could not see myself staying awake past midnight for an 11 p.m. kick. There's your answer.
The game is Oregon at Stanford. Stanford is a 10.5-point home favorite. That feels like a lot to me, but I am going to still go with Stanford because Oregon is just so damn beat up.
Oregon is super beat up on offense. They get Dylan Mitchell and Charles Nelson back, it seems. I think they're practicing, so that's a good sign for whoever starts at quarterback, whether it's Braxton Burmeister, the true freshman, who struggled a lot last week against Wazoo, or Taylor Alley, who is, I don't think, all that much better. But the good news is I think it's a decent enough matchup for Oregon. They play the run really well. Oregon stops the run and has against maybe lesser teams, and Stanford has the best home run hitter in college football in Bryce Love, and I imagine he'll get his. But I think Oregon, it's a nice matchup against, I think Keller Christ is starting this game. Stanford can't throw the ball, and it's crazy, Ty. When you have Bryce Love and you can't take advantage of play action, that's madness to me. I think Oregon hangs around. I don't think they win this game. I'm going to take Stanford to win, but Oregon to cover that, 10.5 point spread?
10.5, yeah. It's a lot of points.
So I'm going to say 31-24 Stanford. Oregon covers.
We disagree. Do you have any other games that you'd like to discuss?
I do. Real quick, just in terms of pure entertainment and fun TV, Navy is playing Memphis.
Okay.
And Navy hasn't lost a game yet. Memphis is 3.5 point favorites. Navy is better playing the pass than Memphis is against the run, so I think the run travels. I'm going to take Navy.
Got to go Navy, yeah.
I'm going Navy there. Ohio State, I think, is going to blow the doors off of Nebraska, 24-point favorites in Lincoln. I've got my Yakos home dog, Ty, if you want to play the sound.
The Yakos home dog of the week.
Michigan State in a letdown spot, traveling to row the boat against Minnesota. Michigan State 4-point favorites in Minneapolis. I'm going to take the Gophers there. How about that, Ty? Sky you ma.
4-point favorites, huh?
Yep.
Ooh, I don't know about that one.
It's enticing.
Okay.
Arizona is a point dog at home. Presumably, Khalil Tate will start after rushing for 327 yards.
You would hope so.
He gets to run through UCLA's defense. I think Arizona in a shootout might be good enough to win that game.
Okay.
I think they might be. We'll see. I think Washington comfortably beats Arizona State. And Ty, if you would just do me a favor.
Yes, please.
I don't ask for much. Will you drop that big, stanky, slobbering, lubricated drum and fife?
This is a family show, Dan.
Sorry, I apologize.
This is a real family show here. All right, what do we got? Pat League.
Pat League, drum and fife. Lafayette is 2-4, traveling to Harvard. Let me ask you this. Is this a must-win spot for Lafayette?
I feel like they all are with the way they've started off, especially on defense. I am going to go Big Red here. Oh. Is it Big Red? Is that what they are?
I think Harvard's the Crimson, but
let's go big darker red and the Crimson here. Harvard to upend Lafayette.
Okay, they'll be celebrating that at JP Licks. By the way, how many Patriot League teams have winning records? That's right. I don't see any on this week's slate. Fordham 1-5 traveling to Colgate. And let me ask you this, Ty. Who is this a bigger game for? The Gators or the Rams?
Probably the Rams. This could be their first opportunity in forever to really get one on Fordham, because Fordham's been at the top of the Pat League for the last couple seasons now. I think I go Gators here. Revenge spot for years past.
Yep.
Been playing well this season, though I believe lost a week ago to Lehigh. So give me the Gators here.
I disagree. I'm riding with New York's one true team. Go Rams. Georgetown 1-4 traveling to Lehigh 1-5. Let me ask you this, Ty. Is this a must-win spot for Lehigh?
Well, they won last week against Colgate.
Yes, they did.
And I feel like if they want to get their season back on track, it's really a must-win game for both these teams. 2 combined wins, 2-9 combined record here, Dan. Just not a great year in the Patriot League, so let's go Lehigh. Got to stick with my wife's one true alma mater here. Give me the Mountain Hawks.
Holy Cross 2-4, Yale 3-1, hosting the Crusaders. Let me ask you this, Ty: is this a must-win game for Holy Cross?
Probably not. I don't think they ever considered that they would win this game against the Yaleys. Yale wins.
Okay.
Yale wins. Yeah, they move to 4-1 here.
Yeah, I think Yale wins comfortably here. And this is a matchup, Ty. What do we do with the records in a rivalry, Ty?
You always throw them out.
We got Nell on Nell. And we're not talking Jodie Foster, Ty. We're talking Buck and Core. Has Bucknell at all changed your mind because they're at 2-3 going against the actual Big Red and Cornell?
What are their records again?
2-3 Bucknell, 1-3 Cornell.
I'm gonna go.
Wait, hold on. You ready, Ty?
Yeah.
It's Nell Classico.
Thank you. I'm gonna go. I gotta go Cornell. I never go Bucknell.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cornell as well. That's your Pat League action, Ty.
I have a funny story to tell about the Patriot League. So, we've talked about it on this show countless times now. The Patriot League lightning round is one of our most favorite things to do here at the end of every episode. We have a lot of fun with it. But we'd be lying if we said we put too much energy into picking who we think is going to win these games.
I've got charts, Ty. I got boards.
I know you do, but I'm speaking from the heart over here. A large part of my prognostication in the Patriot League is really flipping a coin or just gut feel.
Just going with that gut.
So got into a conversation with a gentleman who happened to be a Lehigh alum and lives abroad, only follows the football team in the Patriot League from afar at a distance. When he comes to the States, he has an opportunity to kind of check in and see how things are going, but it's not really in his line of sight, being elsewhere, and wants his alma mater to do well, but doesn't pay that close attention to it. Sure. So we got to talking about Lehigh football, Patriot League stuff, and he said, "Well, do you know how's Lehigh doing this year?" I said, "It's just not been a great year so far this year." And I started rattling off stats, and apparently at some point I have absorbed statistics from the Patriot League, just in passing as we try to figure out, what games are we talking about and why does everyone have a losing record. And I got to a point, I got deep into a conversation where I was talking about how many points Lafayette had given up through its first 3 Patriot League or first 3 games this season, when I realized that this gentleman's eyes were glazing over. So perhaps some of our Patriot League knowledge is actually starting to sink in to a point where we know a little bit more about it than we think, and to the point where this gentleman just sort of walked away from me midstream as I was talking about.
I thought the kicker of the story was he was going to be a descendant of Asa Packer, the founder of Lehigh University.
No.
Have you heard that name before, Ty?
I have. Yes, I have, of course.
American businessman and pioneer of the railroad constructing business?
I got married on Lehigh's campus, Dan. Yes, of course.
So you know your Asa Packer facts.
Of course.
Okay.
But anyway,
of Lehigh University.
My point here is that the Patriot League's fun and all that, but you just got to watch how much Patriot League you let out into the world. Otherwise, people are just going to wander away from you.
Sweet.
Just blow off
Good
conversations
advice.
left and right. Okay. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. As we said at the top, this was a bit of an extenuating circumstance for Dan and I, recording a little bit later Lower energy than usual. You're sicker. I'm more tired, but I think we pulled it off. This is a live to tape show, and I'm not going to edit anything out.
Great.
So if we made any goofs, tweet us, let us know. But quite frankly, we're just glad we were able to pull this show off here for week 7. Do give us a call at 408-VERBAL-1 as the games are going on. Give us a piece of your mind. Let us know what's up. You can also text the 408-VERBAL-1. That's 408-837-2251 phone number. If you are at all interested in expressing your thoughts via text message, we're always on the other end, eager, willing, and ready to hear what you have to say. We're also on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and anywhere podcasts can be found, whether that's iTunes and Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, Google Play, or through any of your podcast aggregators. You can find us any which way. Please do listen. Please do subscribe. Please do tell your friends. And if you like what we do, every little rating does help us out here. We've had a bunch of them come in. We're very honored to be your college football podcast of choice, or at least one of the college football podcasts that you have on your device of choice, and certainly for all those ratings and 5-star reviews we've gotten. It's all been very humbling. We're excited to be with you week in and week out.
Yeah, and send us a note, solidverbal@gmail.com. We always like getting letters.
Absolutely. All right. Daniel, go get some honey and rest and whatever it takes to get you back in line for Sunday, okay?
Yes.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildebrand. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll catch you all on Sunday. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.